Hey everyone, this is Adam, and today's video topic is how do I go on and choose my college major? That is a great question. Let me tell you, before we get into some of these factors here, it all starts with you, okay? So, if you're someone, you have no idea about yourself in any way, okay? For first things first, right? Before we even delve deeper into this, is have a personality test, right? These things really do help out. Do some self reflection, have some journaling. You go out into nature, right, with yourself, have some alone time, right? So, ask yourself some questions like, who am I, right? What I really want to do? What are my core values? What are the things I care about the deepest? Try to get an idea of that, right? But also personality tests, like for example, 16 personalities. That's the website. You can check it out. You take that. Okay. Another one would be anagram. Okay, anagram personality test. That's also another one. Take these two. If you find anything else, go ahead and do it. There's also a core value. The core value sorting cards. You can look it up. Essentially, cards of core values, right? And you assign them, prioritize them, right, on a list, and see which are the most important ones to you. That's also another one. So, with all that in mind, right, that's going to really help you out in also assessing based on the things I got behind me here. Now, let's go ahead and start with these. And before I get into that, actually, one more thing is, so let's make sure, right, when we're making such a drastic decision, which is essentially what, choosing a college major is, right? It's kind of like getting married, or it's going to be a significant decision that's going to affect your life for definitely a couple of years, if not many, many, many years. Okay? So, you do not want to be one-sided. Okay? You do not want to be one-sided. What do I mean by one-sided? So one-sided basically means that you're getting into it, for example, just, let's say, for example, you're passionate about something, right? Maybe you're passionate about psychology, for example. So you're like, okay, I'm very passionate about this. My intuition is telling me to kind of go with this, or I'm just very passionate about it, so that's what I'm going to. And you base off of the entire decision, right, and the commitment based off of just that one thing, okay? That's being one-sided, because you didn't consider the other factors, right? Other factors like what? Other factors like salary. Other factors like the potential changes in the economy, in the job market, right? Another factor as well, right? That's future, right? AI. I mean, these things are very important. Got them right here, okay? Research, right? So, salary. I mean, these things you're probably going to suffer in, right? Possibly going to suffer in them. Much more likely to suffer in those because you didn't consider them. Another example, if you're only prioritizing salary, right? You're going, okay, you just look up how much money, does X and Y, Z, or what's the most profitable career? I just want to take that one, bam. It gives you an answer on Google or whatever you use, and there you go. That's just what you go with. That's also an issue because you didn't consider that fact that if you don't have any kind of passion, intuition for it, at least a little bit, at least some, right? Or also you didn't necessarily do any research on, again, the potential changes in the market in the future, the AI, like there needs to be some thinking here, there needs to be some strategy, right? And you can actually even use AI to help you with that too, right? Your chat bots, all that helps with research a lot, makes it a whole lot easier. I mean, that's what you technically would need to use, really, right? You can use Perplexity, you can use ChatGPT. I recommend Perplexity. I think it's really great. It's free. So, yeah. So when I say one-sided, okay, you want to consider multiple factors and not just one factor, okay? Not just one factor like just the salary. That's what I'm going to base off the entire decision off of, or just the passion, just the intuition. That's what I'm going to base everything off of, or just the future, just the job economy. That's what I'm going to base everything off of. And then I'm going to neglect, right, the factors like salary and the factors like any kind of passion or intuition I have for it. And just going to base off of the economy because of the AI thing. That's what I'm going to get into. And that's that. Okay? So what do we really need to consider here? Well, I'm glad you asked. And here's how it starts. Okay? It starts with research. Okay? So, research. What kind of research am I talking about? Well, the kind of research I'm talking about is the one that gives you an idea of the economy, the job market, and the potential changes that might happen in the future. Now, what do we base off of that? We can base it off of things like statistics, right? And maybe what some online blogs might have to say. But again, I mean, these are just, I'm just giving you kind of examples, but my main priority here would be that you go, here's an example, right? In this part of it, right? Go on to Reddit, go on to any forums online, right? Where people discuss things, and try to find the people who have already been there, right? Who have already went through the major, who have already went through the studying, who have already went through, right, all that process, and see where they are now. Are they in the position where the reality meets their expectations, at least halfway there, 60%, 80%? It can't really be 100% because that's a little hard to do, right? Right? Or is it completely disconnected, right? And they, for example, went into a psychology major, right? And it's been 4 years since they were studying and everything, and next thing you know, they graduated and they were super happy about that. They really enjoyed the studying. They thought they were going to make, a good income and all that. Next thing you know, they graduated after 4 years and the job market is maybe a little bit tough, and they can't find a job. So they go work, at a minimum wage place, whatever that might be. And, they have to do that, and they kind of start losing hope, and essentially what they were really working towards in the first place, right? So it feels like they just wasted years or, months of their time and money and effort and all of that. Okay. So yeah, go, right? Find forums, whatever that might be. See the people who have already been there, right? Or if you can't necessarily find enough posts about it, go post your own post on some community, on some subreddit, whatever that might be. Go on there, post on there, and see what people have to say that have already been there. Okay. I've already went through that, or that are already working the job necessarily, right? So yeah, these are a couple of examples right there. Now, so on the research part, right, getting an idea on the economy, getting an idea on the job market, okay, getting an idea on the potential changes, which we will get into in a second. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the second one, and that would be passion and intuition. Okay, now passion and intuition. Why is passion and intuition important? Well, if you go into something purely based off your research, or purely based off of AI, the future, right? Where this industry going, I think it's going to boom, I think it's going to do great. Well, you know what the issue with that would be? Actually, you guys, I forgot to even put number 4 here. That would be the salary. Let's add that. There we go. Yeah, I have to excuse my handwriting. I know it's not the prettiest. But let's continue. So, passion, intuition. Right? So, you need to have some kind of, at least a little bit of passion. Okay? Right? I'm not saying you need to be, one-sided and just go purely off of passion, purely off of intuition. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying here is you need to have some kind of curiosity about it. You need to be curious about how does this work? Right? I mean, there's plenty of examples of, things like, for example, maybe you were in, maybe you for example love to build Lego, right, when you were younger, right, Aaron? Well, that's an example of, okay, you like building things, right? Maybe it was electronics, maybe it was hardware or software. Well, that'll be leaning more on the digital tech side, maybe a little on cybersecurity, right? If it's just Lego and more machines, or the physical Lego and things like that, just putting these kind of physical parts together, and not necessarily a functioning tech, right? Then it can be maybe a little bit more engineering, but engineering is very broad. There's a lot of examples of engineering. Okay, so it's not like engineering is good or bad, right? I mean, a lot of times it's actually you that makes anything good or bad, right? Because that's what essentially life is based off of, right? And I mean, these people have been in very unfortunate situations, but they made the best of that kind of situation. So that's on you. But what I'm really saying here is there needs to be a consideration. Okay, have a consideration for, are you curious about that? Do you have some kind of love for it? Is it something that you like to do? Okay, all these kind of things. Or is there something inside of you that's kind of telling you to get into that, right? Maybe it's intuition related. Okay, so that needs to be in consideration, right? And I know you probably got a question coming up, and I'll address it in a second. Now, the third one would be the future. Okay, so future, AI, potential changes, right? I mean, that would also be included. That would be definitely part of if you research as well, right? On the economy, job market, and so on. Okay, so with AI, right, is it something that's going to become more hybridized? Hybridized is in, for example, software engineers. Software engineers, they're not necessarily going to get completely replaced, right? A lot of people think they do, and and if you go online, a lot of people may tell you, no, don't get into that. It's a horrible thing to get into. Blah 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 blah. You have to consider it for a second. Okay, you know, one of the considerations is this really gonna completely replace these people, replace me, or is it something that I can adapt to? I can adapt my times. I can position myself in a way, right, where I can actually adapt more a little bit into that. I can become hybrid. So I can do some coding, or I'm using an AI, right? But I'm also the person who needs to know at least a little bit of coding to be able to fix it, to be able to, analyze and make sure it's doing everything right, etc., and so on. Okay, so these are hybrid forms, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to completely replace you. And besides, we're also usually focusing just on the career side. I mean, even as a business side, that can actually be a great idea as a business, right? Rather than just a career, right? And another factor as well, to even really broaden our horizons even more, is consider the international factor, the other countries, right? Well, guess what? Software engineering can be maybe a little bit oversaturated in the US or in the UK, maybe a little bit in Western Europe. But have you looked into Eastern Europe? Have you looked into Asia? Have you looked into Africa? I mean, right, some of the countries, or maybe some of the sectors specifically, right, where they're not necessarily just in poverty, right? That's not what I'm saying, but not like, right. I mean, there's other companies, right, where it can be oversaturated, let's say in the US, UK. But then if you go to another country, right, that same position can actually be very much in demand. It can be a growing trend, right? I mean, with the trends thing, really, right? I mean, you can go on Google Trends, also get an idea of trends, right? That's also pretty helpful, right? But keep in mind, trends usually come and go. Just like kind of what we see back in 2020 with the whole software engineering thing, when everything shut down. Okay, everything shut down, and really people were just like, okay, well, everything just kind of started switching to online work, right? Right now it's a little bit more on the hybrid side, but guess what? There's cost to essentially having office and stuff like that. So over time, businesses, especially if the economy starts to get tighter and tighter, let's just say someone, the budget is a little tight, then they might actually start offering a little bit more on the online side. But what I'm saying here is really, you saw that trend, you saw that boom, right? Back in 2020, people, it's like, okay, coding, everything, we're just gonna do things online, because where else am I gonna go? Where else am I gonna do? Can't be around people, can't really go outside that much, right? That wearing a mask and all that. So, people that just started booming essentially, and just boom, just went all the way up. But now it's kind of going down. I'm not saying it's going down. I'm not saying it's going down as a demand, right? There's still obviously the demand is still growing, right? But demand is just changing, right? Now there's more AI involved. Now there's more other things that are involved. Okay, so again, you have to keep in mind, businesses here always prioritize what essentially helps move them forward. Okay, and you can be either part of that, or you can be, you can be an asset essentially to that kind of mission that they might have, or you can be a liability, right? So now the fourth one, okay. Now I know earlier I said it's just three, okay, but we have the fourth one. I mean, yeah, that one is obviously a factor, right? It's salary, okay. Salary, of course, guys. I'm not saying neglect the salary, right? That's pretty important to consider. What's the potential salary? Okay. I mean, yeah, it's pretty simple, guys. I don't think I necessarily need to explain that much further. Okay, but just have an idea about that. Okay, I'm not saying obsess about it. I'm just saying have an idea about that. Keep that kind of thing in mind. Is it something you'd be satisfied with? Is it something that you'd be able to live with, right? If you kind of calculate maybe the kind of lifestyle that you'd be looking forward to having, right? Is that enough to be able to fund your lifestyle? Or is it something where you're underpaid, where you love your job, for example, but you're underpaid? Well, that's an issue. Right now, you probably want to look into something else, right? Because guys, the whole point here is to really cover all of these, okay, rather than just two of them, or rather than just one of them, okay. Now, yeah, I know there's some people, and this is probably maybe one of the questions you might be wondering is, okay, well, Adam, what if I got just the research and just the passion, right? Or let's say I got the research and the future, for example, and AI and all that stuff. Right, I got the salary, so that's good. But I have no passion, no intuition for it. I'm not curious about it. I don't really care. That's an issue. Okay? So I'll tell you, okay, we can keep that to this. I'm not saying disregard it completely. Keep that to the side. Let's look into other things, right? List some of the things that you're curious about. I mean, look, it's not that hard to do. I mean, you can literally just go on YouTube and look at what kind of things are you watching on YouTube. What kind of music do you listen to? What kind of things do you really enjoy doing? And what kind of things do you don't enjoy doing? What kind of people do you enjoy to be around? Right? Have you taken your personality tests? Take those. Have you done your self-reflection? Have you went to nature and maybe done some solitude? Have some solitude time, right? Ask yourself some questions. Do some journaling. Okay, all these things help. So let's sum this up. And by the way, I just want to give an example, right? On the passion and intuition part a little bit, right? And not that the salary was necessarily bad, but maybe it wasn't something they really, really heavily considered. Okay, and also the future and all that stuff. I had a coworker of mine in the place before, and they essentially it was in a dog daycare, and they were a veteranist. Okay, and veterinarians. I hope I'm saying that right. The people who take care of dogs and animals. Okay, if they're wounded, whatever, and they help them out. Yeah. So essentially, so he went and he studied really for like about 4 years, right, in the college major, right, on that, and he put a lot of effort, and there's obviously money involved, right? So he got into debt for that, okay, and it was one of those things where after 4 years he wasn't able to find a job, at least at like a reputable place, right, or at least a place that would actually appreciate him. So he just ended up working at like a dog's daycare, kind of making minimum wage, and that's that. And not to necessarily mock that or really kind of lessen of him, but there's a lot of potential there that didn't necessarily go into what he was really aiming for. Okay, so that's an example, guys, and there's a lot of sad examples of things like this. Right. I mean, you can find that stuff even on Reddit, YouTube, wherever. People just have these regrets where they were, let's say, one-sided or just two-sided on something. Hey, man, for example, I'm passionate about this. I'm going to basically screw the salary, right? Or, or just kind of make it too quick and didn't necessarily really actually think it through or strategize it. Screw the salary, screw the future on AI, and, the potential changes that might happen after 4 years, because the world changes very quickly, guys, okay? In 2 years, the world already changes. In 4 years, yeah, it's going to be drastic. It might be just something else. So you got to put that into consideration. Is what you're studying going to be outdated, right? Or is it going to be in less demand over time, right? I know you can't see the future. No one can. But we can actually make kind of an assessment here, okay? And kind of see where things might be possibly heading into, okay? So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of really kind of sad examples of that, right? Or just the salary. They're making a lot of money and they're in a corporate environment, but they actually hate that kind of environment. It's not for them. It's too much BS going on, and now they're making all the money, right? And maybe they're a little bit happy, and because they have the funds to actually fund a little bit of their lifestyle, their hobbies and whatnot, and their experiences, their adventures, but they hate it being at work. So they start, and since you're technically at work most of the time anyway, you're going to kind of hate your life. Okay, it's not going to put you in a very good position. It's actually going to affect you, especially energetically, in a negative way when you come back home. You're going to lack energy, you're going to have negative energy, and you got to deal with all that, right? So, guys, try your best to make sure that you cover all of these when you're going ahead and picking your college major. This applies for not just college majors. This also applies for business. Okay, it applies for careers. If you're in a career, it applies to, it's not just studying, it's not just education, right? Even if it's not necessarily a college, it could be just some courses that are expensive or whatever it might be, right? It's just something that's considered drastic to you in some way. These are things to absolutely consider, okay? So, we'll say it again. Research, right? Look into the economy. Look into the job market, okay? The people who have already been there before you. Look what they have to say. Ask them, right? It can be in person, can be online, Reddit, whatever it might be. Okay, see what they have to say. If there's posts you can find, look through them, make your own post. People who reply or people already there, go even to end them and message them and ask them, how's that been? Is that something you could recommend going into still, right? What kind of change or, what kind of different route do you think you would have done beforehand, right? Or before rushing into this or whatever they might, maybe they didn't rush it. Maybe they were lied to or something, right? Or, people were, professor or student, whoever it was ignorant, right? about the potential changes, things of that nature, and now they're not in a very good position. So, next one would be the passion, intuition. Okay, so passion, tuition. We've already talked about that, right? I'm not saying again that you need to be. That's like the only thing. Not one-sided. It's not one-sided. It's not a one-sided equation. Okay, there needs to be an aspect of that. How? Make sure that you're curious about it. Are you curious about? What are you curious about? Okay, what am I curious about? I say curiosity because curiosity actually is linked to intuition, creativity, and all these things. So that's why I say, what are you really curious about? Oh, I want to know how this really works or whatever, right? For you, an example for you might be, for example, cybersecurity, because when you were younger, when you were a kid, you would play these little video games, right? Watch Dogs 2, for example, right? And you were really into hacking. You really love hacking as a concept. You thought, man, this is really cool. I should get into that. That's an example right there, okay? Of, passion, intuition, right? Things you've already done, things you maybe haven't done, but you actually love to do, okay? And see if you can maybe get kind of a alternative experience of that. So, see if you can maybe dip your toes into that water in some way or another, even virtually, or whatever that might be, and see if you can actually kind of get an idea of what it's really like if you've never actually tried it or been around there or anything like that. Okay, even as jobs, you can leverage jobs for experience that really teaches you a whole lot more than it pays, right? So that would be more valuable, essentially, right, than just this little paycheck, right? So future, right? AI, potential changes, right? Remember, picking college major, right? Especially for, a bachelor's, 4 years. 4 years, the work can be completely different. Consider the fact that where is this something that where's this going to position you, okay? Where can you position yourself, right? Is this something kind of outdated after 4 years and is completely irrelevant? Is this something, right? Again, we can't see the future, but where could we possibly be, and how could we possibly adapt to that? You're right, because you could somewhat adapt to everything in a way, right? It's just something's going to be really hard to try to adapt to, and other things are going to be much easier. That's the kind of side of the coin that you really want to be aware of, and really approach these kind of things from a place of awareness. And of course, the fourth factor would be the salary. Very simple, does not need explanation. And that's that, guys. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know if there should be anything that I should maybe include next time. And yeah, you can guys let me know in the comments. Okay, and if you also got any videos, any kind of questions that you may have, share them below. I'll make sure to possibly make a video about them or answer in the comments. We'll see. But yeah, guys, hope that was helpful. We'll talk again soon. Take care. Bye.